I'm seeing more court-ordered sales in Vancouver where property owners are taking losses that run well into the seven-figure range. And naturally, that's catching people's attention. Buyers are asking whether these situations represent real opportunities or whether they're walking into something far more complex than they realize. In this video, I'm going to walk you through several recent court-ordered sales step by step. We'll look at the actual homes, what they sold for, how these prices compared to previous values, and what the underlying debt structure looked like. I'll also explain the risks that don't show up in the listing details, including financing challenges, timelines, and legal exposure. Court-ordered sales can work in very specific situations, but they're not a shortcut to easy money. My goal here is to give you a clear framework so you can decide whether this strategy fits your risk tolerance and financial position before you ever consider pursuing one. The first property we're going to pull up here is one in West Vancouver. This was actually brought forward to me by a client to look, and we were watching on it to see what the status was. So on the front end here, you're going to see it here on the screen, 1151 Millstream Road. So this is in the British properties, and you can see by the photos here, it is quite dramatic in terms of the look, right? You're on the hill, it has great views, it's at the outdoor pool, it's built onto the hillside, and it is a large house. So as we go into some of the details here, there's a couple things that I'm going to point out to you so that you can understand how this process works a little bit better. So the first thing I want to do is just pull up the history on this, because this really tells us the story of what is going on. So if we look at when this property first closed, it closed not too long ago in 2022. So May 10th, 2022, it sold for $4.8 million. And then as we look a couple years later, it was then brought back onto the market in April of 24 for just under $5 million. And then from there, we saw a huge reduction in price. They expired the listing in August of that same year in 2024. And then they brought it back to market in May of 2025, and they dropped it from 4.999 million to 3.488 million. And what you're going to see on here is that it actually ended up selling for $2.960 million. And you know, when you look at this on the front end and you see the price, you think that is a huge, massive win for that buyer. And that's not always the case, because when we look at the photos, I'm going to show you a couple things here. It's not always what meets the eye. When we look at this assessment here on the listing, assessed at 4.147 million. So you see an assessment of 4.1 million, it sold for just under 3. You think this is a slam dunk great deal. There's a couple things that you need to understand when you are buying a property, and I'm going to go down here into the realtor remarks. So when you're buying a property like this, you're buying it as is, where is. So you can't write into these offers in terms of subject to inspection or subject to financing, as this works in an auction style. So even to get to this number of 2.96 million, which is under that list price, there needs to be an offer that comes in that triggers this property so that it can go to court. Even if you're successful on an offer and they accept that offer, it then triggers it to the court, and then it will be brought to the court in Vancouver for people to bid on it auction style. And with that, there are no conditions on these properties. So you can't have, subject to sale, subject to inspection, subject to review if it's a condo strata documents. You're buying the package as is. You need to have your financing ready to go, and you have to kiss away your due diligence. So in this one here, what you're going to see that the trigger rate here was a firm accepted offer of $2.8 million. So they received an offer at 2.8 that was acceptable to the creditors. From there, they brought it to a court date. And on the back end of these listings, you're going to see that they had a court date of January 6, 2026 at 9:45 p.m. Courthouse at 800 Smythe, Vancouver, British Columbia. So once something is triggered, then they put out a court date. So if it's you or there's several other people that are interested in the property, they will then go with their bids. So as we mentioned here, this was triggered at $2.8 million, but you can see that it actually sold at 2.960. So there were at least one other bid or a couple other bids that ended up bidding this property a little bit higher. When we look at these photos here, as I mentioned, it is a big house. So British Properties, a great area in West Vancouver. It's close to the mountains. You can see the aerial shot here. It is a very big home. But some of these things here, and yes, on the photos, it looks very attractive. But when you start digging in a little bit deeper, and I know some of these remarks have changed just because I had looked at this with a client and they had some comments about how there needs to be a lot of work done in the home. So this has been virtually staged. So it looks really good. But some of the things that I wanted to bring up here as we go through the photos, the one in particular was in the garage. So this house for sure had some sort of roof issue. So right here, you can see that this is a support beam in the garage. This drywall is peeled off. This looks waterlogged. This here looks like black mold and a water leak. So something like this here, there's clearly something wrong with the roof. There's mold in here, there needs to be a bunch of remediation, and this is being viewed online. So when you got into the home, pictures always look better online. You would be able to see the true condition of what it looks like in the house. When we look at the floor plan here, this is a very large home. It's 5,300 square feet. And if there is a problem with the roof, just because of how this is laid out, a flat roof, we're looking at the garage section here. So perhaps maybe there's the issue here is maybe just with the patio itself. But again, without being able to conduct that due diligence, and in this offer, you can't have it subject to inspection, you need to have a big contingency fund of figuring out what's needed. Especially the other thing here, a pool. This home was built in 1988, 38 years old. At around the 30-year mark, there's a lot of building materials that are end of life, such as the roof needs replacement. The windows need replacement. So on a big house like this, even if you're getting it at $2.96 million, you're going to have to be spending a ton of cash to be able to bring this back up to livability. And then because this home is built onto the mountainside, do you want to even get a geoengineer in there to make an assessment of how is the home still standing on that cliffside? You can see that there's rock built right into this wine cellar, which is really cool. So my advice to anyone, when you look at a house like this, 6 bedroom, 7 bath, it sells at 2.9 in the British Properties. That is a great number on paper, but you need to understand clearly what you're getting yourself into. I mean, this home could easily have 7 figures plus of movement in terms of what it needs to be remediated. If the roof needs full replacement, if there's issues with the pool, obviously there's some water issues within the home, there needs to be some mold remediation. If you're getting in there and you have to change things with the drywall, this was built in 1988, is there some sort of asbestos in the home as well? If there's asbestos material, now you got to make sure that you bring an abatement crew in, which is very large expense at a 5,300 square foot home. And don't get me wrong, I mean, this does present like a very good opportunity. It's on a 17,000 square foot lot. There are lots of large estates in here. I mean, just in the description below, it states how you were surrounded by $18 million plus estates. So likely whoever purchased this home is going to be doing a huge renovation project, updating the home in some sort of capacity, and then bringing it back more in alignment with its assessed value. So again, this does look like a great deal if you are a builder, a contractor, have access to those trades. But if you were someone, and I get, it's funny, most of the people who do reach out to me are usually first-time home buyers, and there is a lot of risk associated with this. And I don't think if you are a first-time home buyer, getting into something like this is a great position. I think court-ordered sales are really for more veteran buyers and sellers, people who understand real estate, who understand the risk of things, and who have deep pockets, because you can get something for a steal, but if it's not livable and you have to make a bunch of changes in there, your budget can spiral out very quickly. And if you don't have the funds to make those changes, then you're going to be living in a house that you really do not like. Just going through some of the photos here, and I wanted to show you one more property here, and this one is in Point Grey, and this one was listed at 3.48 million and sold for 3.3780. And if we pull up the history just to see what happened on this one here, you can see that this one, if we go all the way back, when did it originally close? It originally closed at 4.145 million in 2024. So this is a very quick turnaround. In less than 2 years, this homeowner unfortunately had to liquidate this home. So in February 2024, this was closed at 4.145, and in April of 2025, it was back on the market at 4,088,000. I had had several price adjustments where they ended up dropping it all the way down to the number that we saw on the listing here of 3.48 million, and then it ultimately sold at 3.370. If we look at the tax assessment here, this one was assessed at 3,980, so not as much as a variance as the other property, but that is still some really good value for a home in Point Grey that is in a really good location. Yes, the home's a little bit smaller, 2,500 square feet, but it is a 5 bedroom, 5 bath on a typical lot. So again, we're going to look into the realtor remarks so you can kind of see a pattern here. Court ordered sale, sold as is, where is, and any and all offers must contain this clause subject to court approval as a date set by the seller's lawyer. And then on here, you can see that this was triggered at an original rate. As you can see here, this was triggered, but it doesn't state what that trigger rate actually was. But you can see that the court date was pushed to Monday, November 17th at 9:45 a.m. and it says anyone who is interested in bidding, please arrive 20 to 30 minutes earlier. So again, it's giving you some instructions on what to do. Not sure what this one was triggered at, but in many cases, the trigger rates come in a little bit lower and you can see things get bid up. There has been in history, as I've been starting to make calls with some of these successful sales, just to ask how many people have been showing up to court. And it has been noted that you would think there would be a lot more people interested, but in these court-ordered situations, there are not as many people showing up. And again, if you're that original bid and you go into court, no one shows up, you are going to get that property as long as it is triggered. So let's take a look here at this home here. And first I'm going to say this was built in 2016, so this is on a 33 by 112, so typical lot in Vancouver, in the Point Grey area, 4650 West 6th Avenue. And you can see that it has the tile, nice open concept, high ceiling heights in here. We have the kitchen. So all in all, like a pretty good quality build home. There's lots of nice features with the millwork and on the walls and in the ceilings, and the built outs in there. So obviously this is a Point Grey home. You're going to have some more of these luxury finishes in here. But all in all, I would say that this is a pretty good buy at a 3.3 in Point Grey for that. Obviously, when it comes to court-ordered sales, if you can buy something that is newer, there's going to be a lot less problems. So I look at something like this, 9 years old. You know, you're not going to have issues with the roof. You're not going to have issues with the windows. This home is still actually has 1 more year left on its 2, 5, and 10 home warranty. The ones in question is when you're starting to look at homes that are older and not being able to do that due diligence. This is a little bit easier of a risk tolerance when you're looking at court-ordered sales with homes that are newer. And in this list, I'm not going to bring it up, but I mean, there was one that was a brand new home in Southlands that went court-ordered as well. I guess there were some remaining units left in this development. It was a detached brand new home that went to court-ordered, and again, your risk is a lot less. You can't do some of those provisions in terms of wanting to have a subject to inspection before your offer gets appointed and accepted, but obviously if it is a newer home, you're going to have a lot less risk. So again, wanted to show this out to you, what's kind of going on in real time with these court-ordered sales. What are some of the risks involved, the process involved? If you are thinking of this, making sure that you are understanding and having conversations with your bank, with your lenders, saying that you are going through this process. Is there anything that they can help with that decision making, just to make sure that once you do go to court and if you were successful, you know, you are on the hook now, and making sure that your financing is in order. But if you do have any court-ordered sale questions, send me a message. I can also give you my court-ordered sales list.